YouTube neighbor. Thanks for stopping by. While I change from the attire and mindset I share with the world into something a little more personal, I want to tell you about a friend I've made that helped me to understand life a little better. Fred Rogers. Sometimes I call him Mr. Rogers. One author once observed that children's TV personalities were usually just fantasies that ended as soon as the filming stopped. But she also claimed that Fred Rogers was more Mr. Rogers than Mr. Rogers was.
I've always wanted to live in a neighborhood with you.
He had a unique, uplifting perspective on life that the world was quick to overlook. People thought he spoke slowly because he was stupid, and he got made fun of for it.
See? Nut, Rit, Eon.
But did you know Mr. Rogers studied at Dartmouth? The message he instilled in children was something special, something few grown-ups have today. That's why, to me, Fred Rogers is not only something of an existential figure, but a superhero of authenticity. So let's explore a few of the places where he really stood out, and see what we can learn from Mr. Rogers today. First, Mr. Rogers had a truly amazing lifestyle that shocked people. I want us to take a look at the reaction he got from people when he went on to The Tonight Show. Then we're going to explore how he understood what it means to have an identity in a world where we understand little and are constantly having to learn new things. Next, we're going to take a look at some other 20th century figures who were all very different, but had something major in common with Mr. Rogers. Then we're going to play a game where I toss a quote out there, and we see if you can guess if it was said by Mr. Rogers or a mystery guy from the 21st century. Oh, also don't forget about our own land of make-believe. While the cats you might imagine inspect each other and point out each other's flaws, today I'm not going to evaluate how much of an existential hero Mr. Rogers was, because, like Joan of Arc, he achieved and did something that is beyond my tier of being able to evaluate. He is simply too off the charts for me to wrap my arms around. Even as a grown-up, I still find myself looking up to him. So instead of measuring his perspective and achievements, we're going to find what we can learn from him and become uplifted by the warmth and power of his existential message. Fred Rogers did a lot of quiet, personal things to help people. You could tune into his show and see some of that. There are also a lot of amazing things that happened in his personal life that could never be scripted and say a lot about both who he was and who you and I can be. The biggest story to me is not the one where he helped a woman kick a hard substance addiction, although a woman did credit him with doing that. By the way, a hard substance addiction is not like being addicted to memes or addicted to yoga or anything like that. Usually the word addiction is tossed around to mean an influence that is so powerful you just can't get rid of it. Many people act like they stop having any say in their lives at all. And Mr. Rogers taught people that you don't have to let your feelings decide who you are going to be. Here's one of these quotes. Confronting our feelings and giving them appropriate expression always takes strength, not weakness. It takes strength to acknowledge our anger, and sometimes more strength yet to curb the aggressive urges anger may bring and to channel them into non-violent outlets. He also says, all children need to see that the adults in their lives can feel anger and not hurt themselves or anyone else when they feel that way. The biggest story to me is not how a man took down a website just because Fred Rogers didn't like it. The man who made the website was an attorney who was sure he had the legal right to parody Mr. Rogers. But while that man may have understood better what the legal boundaries were about sharing content, a higher understanding shone down on that man. Maybe the lawyer could hear the voice of Mr. Rogers saying to him, "It's great to be able to stop when you've planned a thing that's wrong and be able to do something else instead." While taking down the website making fun of Mr. Rogers may show incredible respect for Mr. Rogers and maturity, there's another story that's even more amazing to me. The most amazing story to me wasn't that thieves stole Fred Rogers' car and gave it back, although that story is pretty amazing. In particular, I hear a lot of voices on social media saying that thieves come from underprivileged backgrounds and have to steal in order to feed themselves and live, as if there truly was no choice to be made in the face of poverty, as if life had nothing to offer but dog-eat-dog choices. The thieves learned something for themselves that they didn't have to steal. They could choose something better. Mr. Rogers helped them learn something that many people today simply do not understand. The most amazing story about Mr. Rogers to me is what happened when he was invited onto The Tonight Show. Back then, it wasn't this guy, but this guy, but I think he would have had the same effect on anyone. I'm not sure what they were expecting, probably that Mr. Rogers was a different person when he was around adults and standing before a world audience. Before I tell the story, I'll note that one of Mr. Rogers' biographers observed that the essence of Mr. Rogers' neighborhood is that it's time to slow down. The host on The Tonight Show was amazed that this wasn't just an act he did for the kids, but who Fred Rogers really was. Mr. Rogers responded to the questions in a very simple, careful, slow-paced way. When he was asked about why he did this, even off of the set of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, he replied, "I think for me, I need to be myself." From an existential point of view, this is a tier of self-understanding that I think a lot of famous existential writers never achieved. I certainly don't think I've gotten to that level. How are you going to get hired if people see you that way? What if someone doesn't like you? Aren't there like a jillion things you want to get off your chest while you had an audience of this size to listen to you? Johnny Carson couldn't take it in. He was confronted by the absurdity of it all. Let's talk for a moment about absurdity. Can you say absurdity? I believe you can. For a lot of people, absurd just means, I don't like what you said and I'm going somewhere else. Okay, thanks, bye. The origin of the word implies that something has happened that cannot be put into words. Like you might be forming words and pointing at things, but what you are getting at between the lines is something unfathomable, something beyond words, something no cadre of philosophers and academics could ever lay claim to. So the next thing that happened was Johnny Carson wasn't sure how to respond and struggled to hold back a laugh, which is often how people respond when they confront something that is truly absurd, or wonderful, or beyond understanding. Mr. Rogers asked the host if he wanted to laugh and reassured him, telling him it was okay. And the host laughed. I think it's very easy to be insecure about how people respond to you. When I was in college, about once a year, a car full of young females would drive by and laugh at me. I was never sure why. I didn't think it was because they thought my jokes were any good. I was never quite sure what to make of it. Johnny was so taken back about Fred and the way he talked with a slow, measured cadence that he used on his program that he could hardly hold back the laughter. Fred Rogers faced a lot of derision growing up. People made fun of him and even bullied him because of his weight. As terrible as bullying a child is and can be, this hardship became an occasion for finding greatness in the life of Mr. Rogers. Fred Rogers understood that he didn't need the approval of famous people or the approval of the world to be himself, and that is a masterclass in what it means to be an existential hero. One of the things I get a kick out of is looking at whether ancient people were existential heroes. A few videos ago, people in the comments were a bit upset that I claimed Joan of Arc was an existential hero, even though she obviously never read anything by Soren Kierkegaard. Well, of course she didn't, although other noted figures like Kafka, Jean-Paul Sartre, Henry Nouwen, Ludwig Wittgenstein, and many others were reading Kierkegaard and inspired by them. For Kierkegaard, what makes two people contemporaries of each other is whether they walked a similar path, going so far as to say, you can become a contemporary of Jesus Christ if you associate with the sick, the poor, and the broken. In some ways, Fred Rogers was like a lot of other voices in the 20th century, but in many ways he surpassed them. A lot of that was because of how rigorously he lived his views out, both with his television neighbor and separately from them. Consider some of these 20th century figures. I see an atheist, socialist, playwright, philosopher. I see a conservative president who was a Christian, and I see a children's television host and producer who created a lot of original content and was an ordained minister. What could these people possibly have in common? Well, a big similarity between them was how they frequently appealed to freedom and responsibility. Mr. Rogers said, "Honesty is often very hard. The truth is often painful, but the freedom it can bring is worth the trying." And he also said, "You rarely have time for everything you want in this life, so you need to make choices. And hopefully your choices can come from a deep sense of who you are." His friends and family influenced him tremendously as well, also encouraging him to take risks and seize his freedom. His mom's dad encouraged him to take risks, such as walking up on a high wall when he was a kid. Also, a family friend taught him how to fry up breakfast sticks when he was a little child. So in some ways, Fred Rogers had some kinship with a lot of the existential vibes that were going on in the 20th century. But was he actually studying Camus or Dostoevsky? Well, not really, but he did read a lot of Henry Nouwen, and Nouwen did spend a lot of time studying Kierkegaard. A few of the other major influences on Mr. Rogers that I'll mention were Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, who wrote The Little Prince, the Bible. As an ordained minister, you can't dismiss the effect the Bible has over his life. When he was asked to speak at graduations or to preach, he frequently quoted from the Bible. In my opinion, he seemed to like the Book of John. Also, Margaret McFarland, a child psychologist who, among other things, emphasized teaching to kids subjects like trust, consistency, and individual differences. Ultimately, I think that while you could make the case that Fred Rogers was inspired by the existentialism of his time, it's more the case that his introspection of his own life and ideals, his religious upbringing, and calling guided him into becoming the person he was. Okay, let's play a game. I'm going to share 7 quotes that came from Mr. Rogers or a mystery guy from this century, and you can try to guess who said it. The mystery person today is Jordan Peterson. Here's the first quote. "There's never been anyone exactly like you before, and there never will be again. Only you." If you guessed Mr. Rogers said that, then you got it. Next quote. "You must keep the promises you make to yourself and reward yourself." Dr. Peterson said that one. There's also a very similar quote that Mr. Rogers said. "I like to keep my promises. That's one of my disciplines." Who do you think said this? "There is a close relationship between truth and trust." That one was Mr. Rogers. Here's the next quote. "Every person is unique." That one was Dr. Peterson. But who do you think said this one? "Often out of periods of losing come the greatest strivings toward a new winning streak." That one was from Mr. Rogers. What do you think about this one? "Seeing is very difficult, so you must choose what to see and let the rest go." Jordan Peterson said that one. How about this one? "It is so essential for us to be mindful of the humble and the deep rather than the flashy and the superficial." Fred Rogers said that one. Last question. Who said this? "The greatest gift you ever give is your honest self." Fred Rogers said that one too. Good job, YouTube neighbor. You made it through a tricky challenge, just like I believed you could. Before we close our program today, let's take a make-believe journey to Kokomo, Indiana, and see what some of our feline friends are up to. I hear they are having differing opinions about how relevant kids shows are for the rest of us.
I didn't know they had trolleys here. I'd rather stay away from the kids' stuff. I've outgrown it, and it's also not terribly exciting.
You might be surprised how much of a kitten there is still inside of all of us, and how exciting it can be to take a look at your life and how you're living it.
Is that a puppet? What kind of Bronze Age technology are you peddling here, Zeno?
My name is Sir Edmund Today,
What?
but we can talk about our neighbor Zeno if you like.
Ugh. How uncomfortable. Hang on.
Take your time.
That puppet is such a thinly veiled version of you, Zeno.
Maybe we could all use a chance to let some more of our personal identity get out. Just like how house cats get sent out by their owners on a daily basis.
Not all of us. I don't like this one bit. Not all of us can just make a portal and escape things, you know.
But look at me, Chloe. I'm right here. I'm glad I can spend this exact moment in time being here with my neighborhood friend, Chloe. I could be anywhere in the world. I could be anywhere in history. And I'm choosing to have a conversation with Chloe.
Wow. Okay, that is a little touching. Maybe I needed to hear that.
Zeno was holding up a puppet to share some things with Chloe about himself in a different way. Do you think it's possible that maybe a person could use pixelated cats to say something in a different way about what mattered to him? Like maybe how much his audience mattered to him, for example? Fred Rogers was laughed at for being slow and stupid, despite his Ivy League background. He was also accused of pushing his church views onto children. But even if it was all just the way his critics said it was, perhaps each of us does have something hidden and wonderful to share with the world. Some of the best gifts people have to offer can be unclear or even frightening when you first come across them. There isn't any way to have a meaningful relationship with the public, you know. So far, I've been able to respond to every comment that people have posted on this channel. I've been surprised by how encouraging they mostly are. A lot of them have been confused, like they weren't sure what they clicked on. But even if I can't have any kind of friendship with humanity en masse, I feel that if I could be there with you right now, that I could find something going on in you that is a serious quality, maybe something you've overlooked or forgotten about yourself. You know, everyone has something to offer in life, something to contribute. But you know what? Even if I can't be there with you right now, and even if I can't persuade you that you have something to offer life, and that heaven has something to offer you, I'm still glad I got to spend some time with you today. And maybe you got something out of our time together too. Thanks for stopping by. If you'd like to see more videos like this, please feel free to subscribe to Existential Heroes, click the like button, and maybe I will see you again next time.